Hello again. I want to finish this little trilogy that I've been talking about regarding a motive for the Delphi murders, an opportunity for a suspect or a person of interest who committed the crime, and today we're going to talk about them having the means to commit the crime, having the tools that they would need to kill the girls. So, if you haven't watched the two previous videos, motive and opportunity, you might want to watch those. This one will make a little more sense because you need all three aspects in order to take someone to court and convict them on something like a double murder. So, what does having the means mean? No pun intended. It means that your person of interest, who you've now convinced yourself and maybe others had the motive to kill the girls, which is very important. Maybe the most important part of this trilogy is the motive. So you have established motive, and you've been able to put your person of interest on the bridge, February 13th of 2017. So you've got those two taken care of. They've got the opportunity, they had the motive. Now did they have the means to eliminate these two girls? Well, what does that mean again? It means, did they have the tools to commit the crime, to kill Libby and Abby? So, what would the tools be? Do we know? We don't really know. I think we have to go to maybe the search warrant for Ron Logan's property done by the FBI. And there it talks about all the things in that affidavit that they want to search for. Now, they talk about all kinds of things, but as far as a tool to commit the crime, to give them the means of committing the crime, they talk about looking for a firearm. Do we know that there was a firearm used? I don't think we do. A lot of people speculate that a firearm was used to intimidate or control the girls, get them where they wanted them. And then they talk about looking for a sharp instrument. And again, we don't know exactly what the cause of death was, what caused the injuries that resulted in their death. We've heard stabbing, slashing, those kind of things. But we know for a fact that they're looking for firearms and they're looking for a sharp instrument. Well, what could that be? That could be a sword, that could be a knife, some type of box cutter, it could be a hatchet, a machete, all kinds of things. But they're able to search for all of those things. Now, we know for a fact that this, the manner of death is homicide. We know that the girls were murdered. But the cause of death, without seeing the autopsy report, we don't really know. I don't know if we'll ever see that, but I'm sure some of that will be released once arrests are made. So, back to finding these tools, in this case, the sharp instruments, or instrument. We're probably never going to actually find the actual instrument or instruments used because they've probably been disposed of. So how would we ever put your person of interest, the suspect, in possession of this sharp instrument used to kill these girls? Well, we're probably never going to see the actual instrument, but possibly a witness who knew about it or saw the actual crime or heard about the crime firsthand, maybe from the suspect, could tell us about that instrument, and that would put it in the possession of your person of interest or the suspect. Now that may sound a little vague, but let me give you an example of a case that I worked many years ago. Similar, only it involved a firearm. This happened in 1994, September, I think it was. Missy Berry, Marshall Berry, but we knew her as Missy. Worked at an Arby's, was an assistant manager. She was closing the store one night around 11 o'clock, I believe, at night. And she had the money bag, the bank bag, with approximately $600 and some dollars in it. And she was going to deposit that just a couple of blocks away at the local bank in a drop box that was there for these kind of deposits late at night. Well, as things worked out, as she's getting in her car, a uniformed police officer in a patrol car pulled into the parking lot. And what any good sector officer should do is when businesses like that close, they should have a presence in the area to deter anything of somebody jumping the manager with money, in this case, money. So he just happened to be pulling in, and he notices a gentleman, I will use that word very loosely, a person identified as George Clifford McDaniel, who went by Cliff McDaniel, on the payphone which was attached to the outside of the Arby's. Turns out he actually works at Arby's also. But this uniformed cop actually sees Cliff McDaniel yell over to Missy, "Missy, can I get a ride?" And he hears that and sees Cliff get in Missy's passenger side of her vehicle. So approximately 30 minutes later, this uniformed officer is dispatched to a dead body in a car. So about, I'm going to say a half mile from that location, a pedestrian has walked up onto Missy, dead in the driver's seat, car's running, and it turns out she has a bullet hole through her right cheek, exited out the back of her head, went out an open window, and she's dead. The money bag is missing with $600 some in it, and the deposit was never made at the bank. So we learn very quickly that Cliff McDaniel just lived maybe 200 or 300 feet from where the car's found, and then the interesting thing, which made the case, was the means to kill her. And that's what we're talking about with the Delphi suspect or person of interest and the sharp instrument. In this case, we found in the passenger portion of the front of the vehicle, Missy's vehicle, we found a spent 9mm casing. Now when you fire a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, it'll eject the empty casing, and that apparently fell in the passenger area of her car. So now we know we're looking for a 9mm weapon. Now we have to put that in the possession of Cliff McDaniel, just like you would have to put the sharp instrument in the possession of the suspect in the Abby and Libby murders. So fortunately, as we interviewed friends and associates of Cliff McDaniel, we learned that just a day or two before, he was flashing around a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, which would match the casing that we found in the car. So we had the motive, robbery, $600. We had the opportunity. He's actually seen in the car with her just 30 minutes before she's found, and the car where she's found is just a couple hundred feet from his house, his apartment. And now we have witnesses saying he was in the possession of a 9mm pistol just days before the murder and bragging about this pistol that he had. And we've got the casing in the car. So, quick example of how those things happen. Of course, he's doing life in the pen, and it was an interesting case because he ran off after we interviewed him. He ran off to England, and that resulted in me getting to go over to Scotland Yard in London and also up in Liverpool with the constables who physically arrested him. And then I went back to Scotland Yard and continued the investigation after he tried to run. And of course we got a warrant for him, and he's been to trial, convicted, and in the pen for the rest of his life. So back to Delphi and our person of interest or our suspect. You think you've got the motive, you think you've got the opportunity with your suspect or person of interest. Now we've got to finish this off and have a means for him to kill the girls. Or them to kill the girls. He or she kill the girls. We really don't know. So that's where we're at. I won't drag this out any farther. I think you get the point. You have to have all three. You've got to have that motivation, which is probably the most important in this Delphi case. You've got to have the opportunity. They have to be able to be there. If they were in California and can prove it, they couldn't have committed the crime in February of 2017. So, the last piece of this puzzle is the weapon, the sharp instrument, and your person of interest or our suspect. So, something to think about. Was it a knife, a hatchet, machete, sword, several pieces of sharp instruments? We don't know. But we've got to be able to prove that in court at some point. So, if you like my channel, please subscribe to it, hit the like, share this with other people, and if you would, look into my book, House Secrets. If you are into murder, and I guess that's why you're here, you have an interest in undercover narcotics work. That's what I used to do, in addition to homicide. And you have an interest in outlaw biker clubs, this book would be for you. There's some romance. There's a murder that's very hard to solve. So, House Secrets, it's on Amazon Prime, and the link will be down below. I'd appreciate it if some of you would check that out. Many of you have. And it's got pretty good ratings, so mostly 5-star ratings. And I appreciate that's about the only help I get from doing these videos. So that's really all I've got. It kind of wraps up this little trilogy that we need to get this person arrested, or these persons arrested. Again, I think we're getting close. Just keep in mind, we think we have a person of interest. Many of you do, and some of them are very convincing. Your theories are very convincing. But just keep in mind, law enforcement knows way more than we know. We have no idea what all they've done. So, keep the faith, stay safe, be positive, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you.